Far away from any known trade route, the lonely colony of Valor 9 drifted in silence. Its towers were cracked, its skies pale and still. Once, it had been part of a great empire, filled with ships, light, and trade. But that was long ago. Now the planet's power was fading, its people surviving on the last bits of energy their ancestors had left. Every night, the wind carried the same whisper through the broken streets: no help was coming. They had sent messages long ago, countless distress calls launched into the void, but no one ever replied. The Empire had fallen, their stargates shut down, and Valor 9 was forgotten. Still, a small group of engineers kept one old transmitter alive. It was ancient, half buried in dust, its lights flickering weakly like dying stars. Every few weeks they sent the same message, their final cry for help. "This is Valor 9, requesting aid. We are stranded." Generations passed. The voices who spoke those words died, replaced by their children and their children's children. The SOS drifted between stars, its signal stretching thinner and weaker until it was almost nothing. And yet, somehow, it kept going. No one knew that in the far reaches of the galaxy, beyond all charts, that message still moved, crossing dust clouds, shattered worlds, and frozen moons. It traveled for centuries. Whole civilizations rose and fell while the signal kept moving. Then, somewhere deep in the black, a receiver came alive. It wasn't alien. It wasn't imperial. It was human. On a quiet research outpost orbiting a dying star, a young human technician noticed a strange pattern on her console. The signal was faint, ancient, and written in a code no one used anymore. She almost deleted it, thinking it was static, but then the message repeated. "This is Valor 9, requesting aid." She froze. "Captain, you might want to see this," she said, voice shaking. Within hours, the Terran Fleet Command received the coordinates. They ran the signal through ancient archives and confirmed its origin. It came from a lost alien colony, over 300 years old. The fleet debated what to do. The system was far outside any known route, deep in uncharted space. Still, something about that message stirred them. It was a call for help, a plea left unanswered for too long. The order was given: dispatch a rescue unit. And so the great human ship Argus was sent. Unlike any ship the Valorans had ever known, the Argus was a silent fortress of black metal and strange energy fields. It could travel through space folds without leaving a trace. Its engines glowed faintly blue, like ghostly eyes moving through darkness. Months passed as the Argus crossed empty space, following the dying signal through regions where no star should exist. Inside the colony, life continued as usual. The Valorans had long stopped hoping. They patched roofs, recycled air, and counted their rations. Their leader, Trek, stood on a balcony overlooking the dim horizon. "No one is coming," he said quietly to himself. "We are alone." That night, something changed. A faint pulse appeared on the outer scanners, a signal too faint to identify. At first, the technicians ignored it, assuming it was interference. But then it grew stronger. The scanners began to pick up energy waves, structured and rhythmic. The signal wasn't natural. It was coming from the void. Alarms sounded across the colony. Everyone gathered near the main communication tower, staring at the screen as the unknown object drew closer. The Valorans watched the skies, expecting meteors or debris. Instead, a new star appeared, small, bright, and moving. "It's slowing down," a voice whispered. The star grew larger until its shape became clear, a massive ship, dark and silent, sliding through the atmosphere like a shadow. The colony trembled as shock waves rippled across the ground. The ship stopped high above the surface, hovering motionless, blocking out the sun. Fear spread fast. Some ran to shelters. Others prayed to old gods. "Is it the Empire?" someone cried. "Have they come back?" But no Imperial ship had ever looked like this. Its hull shimmered with strange lights, and its markings were unreadable. For long minutes, the vessel stayed silent. Then, every communication device on Valor 9 flickered to life. The static cleared, replaced by a calm voice, deep, steady, and speaking in the old universal code. Signal received. This is the United Terran Fleet. We found your distress beacon. Identify yourselves. The words froze everyone in place. It wasn't Imperial. It wasn't any species they knew. The Valorans stared at each other, fear mixing with disbelief. Terran. Trek whispered. Who are they? The voice spoke again, steady and certain. Valora, 9, we are here to assist. Please respond. The silence that followed was heavy. No one moved, no one spoke. Then Trek stepped forward, his hands shaking as he activated the old microphone. This is Valora, 9, he said slowly. We sent that signal long ago. We didn't think anyone would answer. For a moment, there was only static. Then the human voice returned, softer now. We heard you. Hold on. We're coming. The message repeated across every speaker, every radio, every display screen. The people looked to the skies again. The black ship began to move, lowering through the clouds. Lightning danced around its hull. The air shimmered with strange blue light. Children cried. Soldiers raised weapons they knew were useless. The colony held its breath as the ship descended. When it finally stopped above the main plaza, a bright ramp unfolded from its side. The light was blinding. Shadows stretched across the ground. And then, from that light, figures appeared, tall, armored, and silent. They stepped onto Valoran soil, their visors reflecting the dying sun. No one spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the human ship hovering above. Trek felt his heart pound. For centuries, his people had begged for help. Now someone had come. But as he looked into the dark, unreadable faces of the humans, he wasn't sure if their arrival was salvation, or something far more dangerous. The crowd watched in awe as the leader of the human team raised a hand, palm open in peace. A translator device crackled to life. The voice spoke once more, calm and strange. You called for help. Humanity answered. The words echoed across the ruined city, carried by the wind. In that moment, Valora, 9 understood, they were not alone in the universe anymore. But deep in the human commander's eyes, behind the mirrored visor, something else waited. Knowledge of what truly lives in the void. And the humans knew, they hadn't just answered a call for help. They had found something the universe had forgotten for a reason. The ship hung above Valora, 9 like a black sun, silent and vast, casting long shadows across the colony. No one dared move. The humans stood in still formation, their strange armor reflecting the dull orange sky. Their helmets had no visible eyes, no sign of expression, only dark glass that hid whatever looked back. The Valorans whispered among themselves, frightened but unable to turn away. For generations they had begged for help, and now something had come, but it was nothing like what they expected. The ground vibrated as the human vessel adjusted its position. Even from a distance, the air hummed with energy. The colony's old sensors couldn't identify the power source, it was far beyond anything in their archives. The humans didn't speak at first. They scanned the air, the soil, and even the people with small devices that emitted thin blue lights. The Valorans flinched as the beams passed over them. Finally, one of the humans stepped forward. His voice came through a translator, calm and measured. We detected your distress beacon. We are here to assess your condition. The Valoran leader, Trek, forced himself to respond. His throat was dry, his voice unsteady. You came, after all this time? The human turned his helmet slightly, almost as if looking directly at him. We came when we heard you, he said simply. Your signal was old, very old. But it reached us. No one spoke for a moment. The silence pressed down like gravity. Trek looked around at his people, their faces pale with disbelief. We didn't think anyone would ever come, he said. The human nodded once. You were not forgotten. The words should have brought comfort, but instead they brought unease. Something about the tone, flat, almost rehearsed, felt strange. The humans began setting up small stations near the plaza. Machines unfolded from metal cases, sprouting arms and panels like insects. Within minutes, the air filled with faint vibrations and pulsing blue light. The Valorans watched with both awe and fear. The devices cleaned radiation, filtered toxins, and began restoring systems long dead. "They're fixing everything," whispered one engineer, eyes wide. "They're making the planet live again." But Trek frowned. "Why would strangers from another world care about us?" he murmured. "What do they want in return?" Later that evening, the sky above the colony shimmered as the human ship projected beams into orbit, scanning the upper atmosphere. The sensors on Valora 9 went wild, unable to comprehend the readings. It was as if the humans were mapping something invisible, something just beyond sight. The Valoran scientists crowded around their monitors. "They're searching for something," one said. "Not just helping." Trek didn't answer. He watched the human commander standing in the plaza, staring up at the glowing sky. The man hadn't moved in an hour. The translator device on his armor flickered once, picking up a faint whisper. Confirming residual distortion. "It's here." No one understood what that meant. That night, the colony couldn't sleep. The humans had set up energy fields that hummed through the night air, creating waves of faint light. Children stared at the sky, afraid but curious. The adults whispered in the shadows. Some thought the humans were gods, others thought they were conquerors. Trek sat alone in the command tower, watching the ship through cracked glass. It looked alive, shifting faintly as if breathing. Suddenly, his console beeped. An encrypted message appeared, not from his system, but from the humans. The text read, "Maintain planetary silence. Do not transmit any signals beyond orbit." He frowned. "Silence? Why?" Before he could ask, the message vanished. The next morning, the humans requested a full planetary scan. Their leader approached Trek. "We need access to your archives and your deep core sensors," he said. His voice remained calm but unyielding. "We must understand what caused your distress." Trek hesitated. "It was our empire," he said. "They left us behind." The human seemed to consider that, then said, "Empires fall. But this feels different." His helmet tilted slightly. "Did you see anything before your systems failed? Any distortions, shadows, or movement in the void?" Trek blinked in confusion. "The void? It's empty." The human's voice dropped lower. "Nothing is empty, Commander Trek. Remember that." Hours later, the human machines started drilling small probes into the ground, sending deep pulses through the crust. The Valorans became nervous. "Are they mining us?" someone shouted. The humans didn't answer. When Trek demanded an explanation, the human leader only replied, "We are stabilizing your world. There are traces here, echoes of something that doesn't belong." His words meant nothing to them, but his tone carried weight. The Valorans began to notice something else. The humans avoided looking at the night sky. Every time the sun dipped below the horizon, they became tense, scanning the heavens instead of resting. The stars above Valora 9 had always been dim, but lately, they flickered strangely, as if something massive passed between them. The colony's oldest astronomer noticed it first. "One of the stars," she said softly, "is moving." The next day, the humans doubled their scans. Their ship rose into the upper atmosphere, circling the planet like a silent guardian. Blue light cascaded across the clouds. Down below, the Valorans gathered in frightened groups, watching. "They said they came to help," a young engineer whispered, "but they look like soldiers preparing for war." Trek didn't disagree. He confronted the human commander again. "Tell me the truth," he demanded. "What are you looking for?" The human didn't move. His helmet turned slowly toward the horizon, where the sun was sinking into darkness. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "We're looking for what heard you first." The words froze Trek in place. "What do you mean?" he asked, but the commander had already walked away, joining his crew near the scanning equipment. As night fell, the stars blinked faintly once more. The largest one flickered, dimmed, and vanished completely. The humans reacted instantly. Their ship's lights blazed bright, casting long beams into space. The colony's sensors detected massive energy readings, but nothing visible. The Valorans panicked. "What's happening?" Trek shouted. The human commander raised a hand, calm but urgent. "Inside. Everyone inside. Now." The colonists obeyed without understanding why. The ground rumbled as the ship activated some kind of shield, a shimmering field that rippled through the air. For a few seconds, the sky went completely dark, no stars, no light. Then, slowly, one sound echoed through every device in the colony. A static hum, deep and unnatural, followed by a faint whispering that no translator could decode. Trek felt his heart pound. "Is that the void?" he asked. The human commander's voice came through the comms, calm but grim. "That's what followed your signal. Keep your people inside. Don't answer it." The colony fell silent. The whispering faded, replaced by a low, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat in the dark. The humans stood outside, weapons glowing faintly, watching the empty sky. For the first time in centuries, Valora 9 was not alone. But as Trek looked through the cracked window, he began to wonder if their saviors had brought something far worse than loneliness. Morning came slowly to Valora 9. The sky was gray and heavy, as if the planet itself was afraid to wake. The humans had spent the night in silence, their black ship hovering above the colony like a silent guardian. The Valorans, meanwhile, didn't sleep. They whispered through the dark hours, trying to make sense of what they had heard. The strange whispering from the sky, the pulse that seemed to echo in their bones. When the sun finally rose, its light felt weak, pale, and uncertain. Trek stood outside the command tower, watching as the humans moved through the streets. They were precise, disciplined, almost machine-like. Wherever they went, their small drones followed, scanning the ground, the walls, even the air. One of them stopped beside him. Its armor was dark silver, with small scratches that told stories of battles long past. "You should keep your people indoors," the human said in a low voice. "We can't guarantee your safety yet." Trek frowned. "From what?" "The sky." The human didn't answer. He just turned his visor toward the horizon, where a faint shimmer moved across the clouds. "From what's listening," he finally said. The words sent a chill through Trek. He wanted to demand an explanation, but the human was already walking away, joining the others who were setting up new machines near the edge of the colony. Within hours, the plaza was filled with strange human equipment, tall metal towers pulsing with blue light, humming with quiet energy. The Valorans gathered at a distance, too afraid to approach. The air smelled faintly of ozone and heat. "What are they doing?" one of the younger Valorans asked. "Protecting us," Trek said softly. "Or so they claim." That afternoon, the humans called for a meeting. Their leader, the same one who had first spoken through the translator, met Trek inside the old council hall. The walls were cracked and half-lit, but the humans didn't seem to notice. "We analyzed your transmission logs," the commander said, his voice calm but sharp. "Your SOS wasn't the only thing drifting through space." Trek blinked. "What do you mean?" The human touched a small projector on his wrist. A holographic display flickered to life above the table. It showed the path of the Valoran distress signal, a glowing line stretching through black space. "This is your signal," the commander explained. It traveled for centuries, passing through dozens of dead systems. Then another line appeared, darker and thicker, moving just behind the first. "And this," he said quietly, "followed it." The hologram twisted, showing a massive shadow stretching across star maps. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even a shape. It was more like a wound in space itself. "What is that?" Trek whispered. The human paused before answering. "We call it the void entity," he said. "It's not alive in the way we understand life. It's something older. It listens for signals, especially distress calls. When it finds them, it feeds. Trek's hands trembled. Feeds? On what? On worlds, the human said flatly. On life. On sound. Anything that calls out into the dark. The Valoran leader stared in disbelief. You're telling me we brought it here? The commander's helmet tilted slightly. You called for help. The void heard you first. We followed the trail. For a moment, no one spoke. The machines outside hummed softly, filling the silence with their rhythmic pulse. Finally, Trek found his voice. Then you came to destroy it? The human nodded once. If possible. And if not. The commander's tone didn't change. Then we make sure it doesn't reach anyone else. The weight of those words hit Trek like a stone. He realized now that the humans weren't just rescuers, they were hunters. But what kind of beings could fight something that devoured worlds? As the meeting ended, Trek followed the commander outside. Why help us? He asked. You could have ignored our signal like everyone else. The human hesitated before answering. Because once, long ago, humanity called for help too, he said softly. And no one came. That night, the humans expanded their defenses. Blue energy nets spread across the colony's sky, shimmering faintly like spiderwebs of light. Their ship hovered higher now, its weapons visible beneath its dark hull. The Valorans watched from their homes as the strange humans worked without rest. Fear began to turn into something else. Curiosity. A small group of young Valorans approached one of the humans near the energy towers. Are you really from Earth? One of them asked timidly. The human looked down at them. Yes, he said simply. A small blue world, very far from here. Why come so far? Another asked. Because someone needed help, the human replied. That's what we do. His words were kind, but his eyes, hidden behind that dark glass, seemed distant, burdened by things he didn't say. Meanwhile, in the command tower, the Valoran scientists studied the readings from the human machines. Strange fluctuations appeared in the upper atmosphere, pulses of distortion that didn't follow natural laws. It's reacting, one scientist whispered. Whatever's out there, it knows. As night fell again, the sky over Valora 9 began to change. The stars dimmed, fading one by one, until only a few remained. The humans moved quickly, their equipment glowing brighter, their voices sharp and controlled. Shields up, the commander ordered. Containment grid at full power. The Valorans gathered at their windows, staring upward in terror. A massive shape moved behind the clouds, not solid, not liquid, but something in between. Space itself seemed to bend around it. Then, faintly, a sound rose from the horizon, a low hum that shook the air. The ground trembled. The clouds darkened. It's here, the commander said quietly. Everyone, stay inside. But the Valorans couldn't look away. A hole opened in the sky, swirling like a black storm. Through it came tendrils of darkness, reaching downward, searching. The human ship's engines roared to life, blinding beams cutting through the clouds. Energy bursts struck the tendrils, burning them away, but more appeared. The humans didn't retreat. They stood their ground, calm and steady, firing in perfect rhythm. Trek watched from the tower, heart pounding. He had never seen anything like it, humans moving like a single mind, unshaken, unafraid. The sky screamed, and the air itself seemed to twist. Then, as suddenly as it began, the darkness stopped. The tendrils withdrew. The clouds cleared, revealing the pale stars once more. Silence returned. The humans lowered their weapons. The commander spoke through the comms, his voice tired but steady. It's testing us, he said. It knows we're here now. Trek stepped outside, the air still vibrating faintly. Can you destroy it? He asked. The human turned his visor toward him. We'll try, he said. But understand this, Commander. When the void listens, it never forgets. The wind blew softly through the empty streets. The humans returned to their ship, preparing for what was coming next. And for the first time, Trek realized the terrible truth. Their SOS had not just brought hope. It had brought war. The next morning came without sunlight. The sky above Valora 9 was filled with a dim silver haze that swallowed the horizon. The air tasted of metal, and every sound seemed distant, muffled, as if the planet was holding its breath. The humans were already awake. Their ship, the Argus, hovered silently over the colony, a dark shape against the gray sky. Blue energy lights rippled along its hull like the heartbeat of some sleeping giant. The Valorans watched from behind broken windows as the human soldiers moved through the streets, fast, organized, silent. They carried machines that looked like weapons but hummed softly with strange energy. The people whispered among themselves, wondering if the humans were preparing for war or for something worse. Trek stood on the balcony of the command tower, watching them. His thoughts were heavy with doubt. The humans had protected them the night before, but they had also brought fear. Fear of something far greater than he could understand. The memory of the dark tendrils reaching from the sky still haunted him. He wanted to ask the human commander what that thing was, but part of him didn't want to know. Knowledge, he realized, could be as dangerous as ignorance. Below him, the humans had started to build something new in the main plaza, a circular structure of black metal, taller than any Valoran building, covered in shifting panels of light. The human engineers worked without rest, assembling it piece by piece with tools that hummed and glowed. Curious, Trek walked down to the plaza and approached the human leader. The man turned to face him, his black visor reflecting the broken city around them. "What are you building?" Trek asked. "A shield." The commander shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "A signal dampener. The creature in the void can hear every transmission, every whisper that escapes this planet. If we silence your world completely, it may lose interest." Trek frowned. "Silence? You mean no communication? No contact?" "None," the human said firmly. "If it hears another call, it will come closer. You must understand, we are not fighting an enemy. We are hiding from something that should never have been found." The Valoran leader looked at the giant machine rising before him. "And if it finds us, anyway?" The commander's tone grew colder. "Then we do what humans always do, we fight." His words carried a weight that made Trek's chest tighten. For a moment, the two leaders stood in silence as the wind howled through the empty streets. Then the commander turned back to his soldiers. "Continue construction. I want the field active by nightfall." As the day passed, the humans filled the air with the hum of machines. They installed tall pylons around the city, linking them to the central device. Strange energy waves began to ripple across the ground. The Valorans felt them beneath their feet, soft and steady, like the pulse of a living thing. But curiosity soon turned to fear when the skies began to change again. A faint darkness crept along the upper atmosphere, twisting like smoke under glass. The stars disappeared one by one, and the temperature dropped sharply. The humans worked faster. The commander's voice came through every speaker. "All citizens remain indoors. Do not attempt to communicate outside the colony. We are sealing the perimeter." Trek's people obeyed, terrified. He stayed near the plaza, watching as the final piece of the human device locked into place. The commander pressed a control pad, and the machine came alive. A wave of blue light shot outward, spreading across the city like a dome. For a few seconds, everything went silent. Even the wind stopped. Then the commander looked up, and Trek followed his gaze. High above, in the gray clouds, something was moving. It wasn't light or shadow, it was both, twisting together in impossible shapes. "It's already here," the human whispered. The colony trembled. The black shape grew larger, swirling in slow circles above them. The clouds bent around it as if space itself was being torn apart. The human soldiers raised their weapons, strange rifles that glowed with cold blue fire. The commander barked orders, and the air filled with sharp mechanical sounds. Trek stood frozen as the sky opened. A scream echoed through every device, every speaker, every mind. It wasn't a sound made by any living thing, it was a vibration, a deep, endless cry that made bones ache. The humans fired. Streams of bright energy shot into the air, hitting the swirling darkness. The impact created ripples of light and sound that shook the ground. The Valorans covered their ears and fell to their knees. The commander shouted, "Maintain fire. Do not let it breach the field." The darkness lashed downward, forming long black tendrils that struck the blue dome. Sparks exploded where they touched, and the energy shield flickered. The humans adjusted their weapons and fired again, each blast precise and powerful. Through the chaos, Trek saw one of the human soldiers fall, his armor cracked, his weapon still glowing in his hand. Another soldier dragged him back toward the ship. They moved with calm purpose, no panic, no hesitation. It was as if they had fought this kind of nightmare before. The battle raged for minutes that felt like hours. The air turned thick and heavy. The ground split open in several places, sending dust and smoke into the air. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the darkness pulled back. The tendrils vanished into the clouds, and the sky cleared. The humans stopped firing. The silence that followed was unbearable. Slowly, the commander lowered his weapon. "Status," he said into his calm, "minor damage to the dome. No breach." He turned to Trek. "It's not gone," he said. "It's watching. Testing our strength." Trek swallowed hard. "You've fought this before, haven't you?" The commander didn't deny it. "We thought we could destroy it once," he said quietly. "But you can't destroy a shadow. You can only keep it away." That night, the colony was silent. The humans repaired their defenses while the Valorans stayed inside, listening to the soft hum of the energy field above. Trek sat alone in the tower, staring at the horizon. He could still feel the echo of that terrible sound deep in his chest. Then, on his screen, a new message appeared. It wasn't from the humans, it came from orbit. The words were faint, broken, but clear enough to read. "Help us, it's coming." Trek froze. Another signal? He called the commander immediately. Within seconds, the human's face appeared on the monitor, his expression hidden behind the black visor. "Do not answer that," the commander said sharply. "Do not even acknowledge it." "But they need help," Trek argued. "Someone else is calling for rescue, just like we did." The human's tone hardened. "That's not a call for help. That's bait. The void uses voices to spread. It makes you hear what you want most to hear." Trek stared at the message as it flickered and faded. The realization struck him like ice. He turned back to the commander. "How do you know that?" The human paused, then said quietly, "Because once, we answered one too." The screen went dark. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, even though there were no clouds. Somewhere above the planet, something vast and ancient was still listening. The humans strengthened their defenses, but deep down, Trek knew the truth: the battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. The world of Valora 9 was no longer quiet. The air hummed with the constant vibration of the human machines, the pulse of their great ship echoing through the atmosphere. Days had passed since the shadow first attacked, but the memory lingered like a wound that refused to heal. The humans worked tirelessly, building new towers and expanding the shimmering dome that protected the colony. The Valorans watched from a distance, unsure if they were witnessing salvation or the beginning of something worse. Trek could not rest. He spent his nights staring at the skies, afraid that if he blinked, the darkness would return. Every so often, he thought he saw something move among the stars, a faint shimmer, a shape that vanished when he looked directly at it. The human commander had warned him not to look for too long, not to listen to the whispers that sometimes drifted through the night wind. But curiosity was a dangerous thing. It lived inside every thinking being, and it was growing stronger among the Valorans. "They say the humans have fought this before," whispered one worker as they repaired the colony's outer wall. "They say this void has followed them for generations." Another shook his head. "If that's true, why bring it here?" The question hung heavy in the air. The humans kept mostly to themselves now. Their soldiers moved in groups, scanning the skies with handheld devices that emitted faint blue waves. The commander was rarely seen, except when giving orders. But one afternoon, Trek demanded an audience. The human leader met him inside the great ship. The interior of the Argus was cold and metallic, filled with low lights and strange hums. The walls seemed alive, shifting faintly as they moved. Trek felt small as he followed the commander through the silent corridors. Finally, they reached a circular room filled with holographic projections, maps of the galaxy, old recordings, and glowing energy patterns. The commander stopped in front of one image. It showed a cluster of destroyed star systems, burned out, lifeless. "These," he said, "were the ones that called out before you." Trek's chest tightened. "Destroyed by the void?" The human nodded. "We found their signals. Each one was a plea for help, like yours. And each one led us to a dead world. No survivors. Just silence." He pointed to another glowing mark on the map. "This is where your signal reached. It was weak, nearly gone, but it caught our attention. We thought maybe we could reach you before it did." "You mean the creature?" Trek asked softly. "It's not a creature," the commander replied. "It's older than creation. We don't know what it is, only what it does. It consumes energy, life, sound, motion, anything that breaks the silence of space." He looked at Trek through the dark visor. "You must understand, Commander. The void doesn't just destroy. It listens. It waits for someone to speak first." Trek's voice shook. "So we doomed ourselves when we sent the SOS?" "No," the human said, his tone softening. "You did what any people would do. But the universe is cruel, and the void is patient." He turned back to the projection. "When we first discovered it, humanity didn't understand either. We sent rescue ships, hundreds of them, to answer old calls. Each time, we thought we were saving someone. Each time, we lost entire fleets." Trek swallowed hard. "Then why keep answering?" The commander hesitated. "Because once, someone answered us." The words hung heavy in the cold air. Trek didn't ask who or what had come for the humans, but the sadness in the commander's voice told him enough. After a moment, the human activated another projection. This one showed Valora, 9, surrounded by swirling distortions. "It's feeding off your atmosphere now," the commander said. "Your planet has become an echo. We can't stay hidden for long." "Then what happens next?" Trek asked. "We prepare," the commander said simply. "And when it comes again, we fight." The human's words were calm, but Trek could hear something else beneath them, weariness, maybe even fear. He returned to the colony as night fell. The skies were dark again, filled with slow-moving clouds that glowed faintly from the energy dome. The Valorans gathered in the streets, murmuring about strange lights beyond the shield. Trek tried to reassure them, but even he couldn't hide his unease. Then, just as he was about to retire to the tower, a sound rolled across the horizon, a low, rhythmic pulse that shook the air. The ground vibrated. The human alarms blared. Soldiers ran through the streets, shouting orders. Trek looked up and saw the clouds parting, revealing a swirling mass above the dome. "It's back," someone screamed. The human commander's voice echoed through the comms. "All units, defensive positions. Maintain the field." The black mist spread wider, forming an enormous ring of darkness. Inside it, faint shapes moved, like shadows of cities or creatures trapped in glass. The humans opened fire. Beams of energy cut through the sky, striking the mass above. Each hit made the clouds flash with blinding light, but the void didn't retreat. Instead, it responded. Tendrils of blackness lashed out, striking the energy field. The dome shuddered, its blue light flickering. The ground split open. Buildings cracked and fell. The Valorans screamed as debris rained down. The humans worked fast, recalibrating their defenses. "Shield integrity dropping," a voice shouted. 40%, 30, the commander's voice broke through the noise. Activate Phase 2. Now. The great ship Argus roared to life. Its lower panels opened, revealing rows of glowing emitters. Streams of pure light surged upward, striking the dark mass. The energy was so bright it turned night into day. The void recoiled, the air rippling as it pulled back. For a moment, the stars became visible again. Then, without warning, a deep voice filled every mind on the planet. It wasn't words, it was understanding, a feeling of endless hunger and rage. The Valorans fell to their knees, clutching their heads. The humans stood firm, their helmets shielding them from the psychic assault. "It's communicating," the commander said grimly. "It knows we're here." The void's voice grew louder. The dome flickered again. One of the human pylons exploded, sending shards of blue light across the city. The commander shouted, "Reinforce the west sector. Keep it away from the ship." Trek tried to help evacuate civilians, but every step felt heavier, as if gravity itself was bending. The air was thick, electric, alive with energy. The commander's voice came again, harder this time. "Earthfire protocol. Prepare for detonation." The soldiers stopped firing and began typing commands into their devices. Trek turned in shock. "What are you doing?" The commander's voice was calm. "Ending this." The ground vibrated as the Argus charged its main weapon. Light poured from its hull, spreading through the colony like fire. "Everyone inside!" Trek shouted, running for cover. The last thing he saw before the explosion was the commander standing in the open, looking up at the sky, unflinching. The blast tore through the air with a roar that shook the planet. The darkness screamed and dissolved, retreating into the clouds. When the light faded, silence returned. The humans stood among the ruins, their armor scorched but unbroken. The void was gone, for now. Trek looked at the commander, who lowered his weapon slowly. "It's not over," the human said quietly. "It never is." Smoke drifted across the ruins of Valora 9, curling through shattered towers and broken streets. The ground was blackened where the human weapon had struck, leaving a wide crater at the heart of the colony. For a long time, no one spoke. The Valorans hid inside what was left of their shelters, trembling in silence. The humans moved like ghosts through the aftermath, efficient, unshaken, their armor reflecting the pale light of a dead sun. Trek stood among them, his mind still reeling from what he had witnessed. He had seen the sky burn. He had seen the void scream. And yet, something deep inside told him it wasn't truly gone. The commander approached, his armor scorched but intact. "You should keep your people inside," he said quietly. "There may still be fragments of the entity nearby." "Fragments?" Trek repeated. "You mean, it can survive that?" The commander's visor turned toward the horizon. "It always does." His voice carried the weight of old battles, of losses that could never be counted. The humans began setting up new devices around the colony, strange black obelisks that emitted a low hum. Trek asked what they were, but the commander only said, "Wards. Not shields. Not weapons. Just boundaries." As the machines activated, the ground vibrated with a low pulse. The humans seemed calmer, but the Valorans grew uneasy. The air felt heavier, thicker, as if something was being pushed away, or trapped inside. That night, Trek couldn't sleep. He walked to the edge of the colony where the crater glowed faintly with blue fire. The stars above flickered like dying candles. Then, out of the stillness, a voice whispered, "Help us." He froze. It was faint, echoing from the wind, but he recognized it, the same voice that had called to him before. "Help us, please." His heart pounded. He looked around, but no one was there. The humans were far away, working near the plaza. The voice came again, this time clearer. "We can't hold it back, it's spreading." Trek's hands shook. Against every warning, he opened his communicator. "Who is this?" he whispered. Static filled the air, then a faint reply. "This is Captain Orlon of the Varine colony. We answered your signal." Now it's here. His eyes widened. You answered our SOS. We tried to help, the voice said weakly. But it followed your call through the void. It's consuming us. The connection broke into static, then silence. Trek stared at his device, horrified. He had just heard the death of another world. Before he could process it, a hand gripped his shoulder. The human commander stood behind him. You shouldn't have done that, he said flatly. Trek's voice trembled. They were calling for help. I couldn't ignore them. It wasn't them, the commander said, his tone cold. The void can mimic voices. It remembers what it consumes. He looked at the communicator and crushed it in his hand. From now on, you listen to nothing. You answer nothing. Trek wanted to argue, but the look in the human's eyes, though hidden behind the visor, was enough to silence him. The humans knew something the Valorans didn't. They weren't just fighting to protect this world, they were fighting to contain something older, something unspeakable. As the night deepened, the humans gathered around their machines. The commander spoke softly to his soldiers. It's learning faster this time. It's adapting. One of them nodded. If it breaches again, we may need to trigger another Earthfire. No, the commander said firmly. This planet won't survive another blast. We hold as long as we can. Trek listened from a distance. The words filled him with dread. He returned to the command tower and looked out at the horizon. In the far distance, the sky shimmered faintly, like heat waves, or something moving behind the veil of reality itself. The next morning, the humans gathered everyone in the plaza. The commander spoke with a calm but commanding tone. We will begin evacuation protocols soon. A transport fleet is en route. Until then, no signals, no transmissions, no lights beyond the dome. The void feeds on energy and sound. Silence is your greatest defense. The Valorans obeyed, fearful but trusting. Yet even as they prepared, strange things began happening. People heard whispers in their homes, echoes of lost loved ones calling their names. Shadows moved without light. Some Valorans began dreaming of a dark ocean filled with stars that blinked like eyes. The humans reacted quickly, scanning the colony for resonance contamination. They found traces of unknown energy in several buildings and sealed them off immediately. Trek watched as they placed glowing cubes inside the structures. When he asked what they were, the commander said only, containment nodes. The void leaves fingerprints. We can't let them spread. But the truth was clear, the colony was already infected. That evening, a distant rumble shook the ground. Alarms blared. The commander sprinted to the central console. Report. Unstable readings at the northern perimeter, a soldier shouted. Something's breaching the dome. Trek ran to the window and saw the northern sky turning black again. Not the same vast shadow, but smaller, concentrated, like a wound reopening. The commander barked orders. Deploy drones. Maintain the barrier. Sleek metallic drones launched from the Argus, forming a pattern in the air. Blue light spread between them, creating a web of energy. The black mass hit the web, hissing and twisting like boiling smoke. The humans fired their rifles, beams of white light cutting through the darkness. The void screamed, a sound that shook every soul within hearing range. The Valorans covered their ears, crying out in pain. The commander shouted, "Keep firing. Don't let it spread." The battle lasted only minutes, but it felt endless. When the last shot faded, the sky was silent again. The drones returned to their ship, damaged but intact. The commander turned to his troops. That wasn't a full breach, he said grimly. It was a probe. It's testing us. He looked at Trek. It's learning your frequency. The more you exist, the more it knows you. Trek's heart sank. You mean, we can't stay here? No one can, the commander said quietly. The only reason it hasn't devoured this world yet is because we're here. But the longer we stay, the more it grows aware. For the first time, Trek saw fear in the human stance. Not panic, but something deeper. A weary acceptance. The humans were running out of time. That night, the Valoran sky was silent once again, but the air felt wrong, heavy with unseen eyes. In the command ship, the humans prepared for departure. Extraction window, 20 hours, one soldier reported. Evac routes confirmed. The commander stood by the viewport, staring into the void beyond the stars. It's never just one world, he murmured. It always spreads. Trek entered quietly. What happens to my people when you leave? The commander didn't turn. If we leave the shield, it will come again. You'll have hours, maybe less. But if we stay, it will destroy both of us. There's no winning against it, only surviving longer. Trek clenched his fists. Then why do you keep fighting? The commander finally looked at him. Because if we don't, no one else will. The ship's alarms beeped softly, signaling a growing energy signature far beyond orbit. Something massive was approaching, something the humans recognized instantly. It found us, the commander said. Everyone to positions. The next wave is coming. Outside, the stars began to vanish once more. The stars disappeared one by one, swallowed by a growing darkness that crept across the sky like ink spreading through water. The people of Valora 9 gathered in silence, staring upward in fear. The humans moved swiftly through the colony, securing defensive positions and activating the last of their machines. The Argus loomed above like a silent guardian, its hull glowing faintly with blue light. Inside the command deck, alarms flared red across every console. The human commander stood at the center, his hands gripping the controls as a deep vibration echoed through the ship's structure. Report, he said. It's here. One of his soldiers replied, voice tense. Massive energy signature, larger than before. It's surrounding the system. The commander didn't hesitate. Deploy the outer satellites. Seal the void net. Trek stood nearby, pale and shaken. What does that mean? The commander glanced at him. It means we're trapping it. Or trying to. The human fleet began releasing small metallic orbs into the atmosphere. They spread outward, linking together through beams of light that formed a glowing geometric pattern in the sky. The air vibrated as energy waves pulsed through the web. For a moment, everything held still. Then the darkness struck. The first impact hit like thunder. The ground quaked. Every light flickered. The sky split open, revealing an endless churning mass of black and violet energy. It wasn't a creature, not truly. It was movement without form, hunger without face. Its voice filled the minds of every living being, a whisper and a scream at once. You called. We came. The Valorans collapsed to their knees, clutching their heads. The humans stood firm, their helmets blocking most of the psychic assault. The commander shouted orders. All batteries, fire. Blue-white beams shot upward from the Argus and from the defensive pylons across the colony. The air blazed with light as the energy met the void, tearing holes through its form. But the darkness didn't die, it only shifted, twisting, absorbing, growing thicker. The web of satellites strained, lines of energy flickering as the void pressed harder. It's feeding off the net, a soldier shouted. It's using our own energy. Cut power to the outer ring, the commander barked. Focus all fire on the core distortion. The humans adjusted their aim. Dozens of beams converged on a single point in the swirling mass. For a moment, the void screamed, a deep, soul-breaking sound, and the pressure eased. The commander exhaled, but only for a moment. The sensors began flashing again. Multiple signatures, someone reported. It's splitting. The darkness fractured into smaller forms, each one pulsing with its own rhythm. They fell toward the planet like meteorites, crashing into the ground with blinding flashes. The colony shook violently. Buildings crumbled. The Valorans screamed as waves of black mist spread through the streets. Wherever it touched, metal corroded, lights died, and sound vanished completely. The commander slammed his fist against the console. Containment teams. Sector 5 through 9, engage now. Human soldiers ran toward the impact zones, firing bursts of blue energy from their rifles. Each shot burned through the mist, forcing it back, but the void was relentless. Trek tried to help evacuate civilians, guiding them toward the shelters beneath the plaza. The air was heavy, electric, filled with a low hum that crawled under the skin. He could barely hear his own voice over the noise. "Move. Quickly. Stay together," he shouted. Above him, the Argus unleashed another barrage. The sky turned white, then red, then black again. "Commander!" one of the human officers cried. "The core of the void, it's not in the atmosphere anymore. It's inside the planet." The commander froze for half a second, then whispered, "It's burrowing." He turned sharply. "Evacuate the civilians. Prepare for orbital detonation." Trek heard him and spun around in shock. "Detonation? You'll destroy the planet." The human's visor faced him, unreadable. "If the void anchors here, it will consume everything. Not just this world, the entire sector." "There must be another way," Trek pleaded. "You can't kill a world to save it." "We're not killing it," the commander said. "We're denying it a host." The ship's engines roared to full power. The humans began loading weapons, long black cylinders that glowed faintly with runes of light. "Earthfire warheads," one of the soldiers said grimly. "They'll crack the crust in 5 minutes." "Do it," the commander ordered. The Argus ascended slowly, its engines burning brighter than any sun. Trek stood helpless on the ground, surrounded by frightened Valorans who didn't understand what was happening. He wanted to hate the humans, to scream at them for what they were about to do, but he couldn't. Deep down, he knew they were right. Something beneath their feet was alive, moving, growing. He could feel it in the ground, in the air, even in his bones. The void was spreading through the planet itself. The commander's voice echoed from the ship's speakers. "All units, fall back. Countdown to ignition, 300 seconds. Trek looked up. The humans had become blinding stars above, preparing to end everything. The Valorans began to pray, their voices trembling. Then, suddenly, the ground erupted. A column of black fire burst from the crater, reaching miles into the sky. The energy dome shattered. The Argus was thrown sideways, alarms blaring. The commander gripped the controls. "Fire the payload now." The warheads launched, streaking downward like meteors. They struck the ground, one after another, and for an instant, everything went silent. Then the world exploded. The shockwave tore through the colony, ripping apart everything in its path. The night turned white. Sound vanished, replaced by a deep rumbling that seemed to come from the heart of creation itself. The void screamed, a vast, endless wail that shook the stars. The light consumed everything. When the noise faded, there was nothing left of the colony. The land was cracked and burning. The once blue skies were now a deep, ghostly gray. The Argus floated above the devastation, damaged but operational. Inside, the crew was silent. "Surface scan," the commander said quietly. "No signs of the void," came the reply. "No signs of life, either." The commander closed his eyes. "Mark the system as quarantined. No approach. Ever." He turned to leave the bridge but stopped when a faint signal blinked on the console. "Sir," a soldier said. "We're picking up something, from below the surface." The commander frowned. "That's impossible. The crust is molten." The signal repeated, weak but clear. It was a voice, faint, distorted, familiar. "Help us, please, we're still here," Trek's voice. The commander froze. "It's not him," he whispered. "He's gone." But the voice came again, this time joined by others, hundreds of voices, all speaking at once, all crying for help. The crew stared at the monitors in horror. The commander whispered. It learned their voices. Outside the viewport, the molten cracks of the planet began to glow brighter. Something beneath the surface was still alive, and it was listening. "All hands," the commander said slowly. "Prepare for retreat. This world is lost." The Argus turned toward the stars, engines blazing. Behind them, Valora, 9 trembled, the faint echo of 1,000 whispers rising into the void. "We called. You answered." The commander stared into the blackness ahead. He knew what came next. The Argus drifted through the black ocean of space, its engines silent, its lights dimmed to a faint blue glow. The crew moved quietly, speaking only in whispers, as though even sound itself might awaken something that still lingered behind them. It had been 3 days since the destruction of Valora 9. The planet was gone, reduced to ash and drifting fragments. But even now, the humans couldn't shake the feeling that the void was still watching. The commander stood on the bridge, staring at the empty stars through the reinforced glass. His face was pale under the helmet's light, eyes heavy with exhaustion. "Any signals?" he asked. "None, sir," replied the officer. "Comms are silent across all bands." The commander nodded but didn't relax. Silence was never safe anymore. It was too perfect, too deliberate. "Keep the void net online," he ordered. "And double-check the resonance field. If it's still following us, we'll feel it before we see it." The ship's AI, a calm female voice, spoke next. "Commander, long-range scanners detect spatial distortion, 40,000 kilometers astern." The commander stiffened. "Show me." A faint ripple appeared on the holographic display, like a wave moving through invisible water. "It's faint, but growing," the AI continued. "Estimated expansion rate, 20% every hour." "It found us," the commander whispered. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Trek's last transmission still echoed in the commander's mind, that pleading voice that wasn't truly his. He knew the void could copy what it consumed, using voices as bait, using memories as weapons. It was no longer just chasing, they had become its path. "Prepare the jump drives," he ordered. "Plot a course for the Perseus Rim. Minimal emissions, silent run." The engines began to hum softly as the Argus prepared for faster-than-light travel. But before the sequence could complete, every screen in the control room flickered. The holographic map distorted, then turned black. A faint whisper filled the ship's audio systems. It was Trek's voice again. "Why did you leave us?" The sound froze the crew in place. The commander's jaw tightened. "Mute all channels." The AI responded, unable to comply. "The transmission is internal." "Internal," the commander snapped. "Source." "Every deck," the AI replied. "Every speaker." The whisper grew louder, no longer just Trek. Dozens of voices joined in, a chorus of pain and accusation. "You called us heroes. You promised safety. You brought it here." The lights dimmed. The walls vibrated. The commander shouted, "Activate the null field." A deep hum filled the ship as the emergency dampeners engaged, cutting off external signals and silencing the airwaves. For a few seconds, there was peace. Then, from the corridor outside, came a sound, soft footsteps. The soldiers raised their weapons, forming a defensive line. "Who's there?" one of them called out. No reply. Only the slow echo of metal boots approaching. The commander motioned for the nearest soldier to check. The man moved forward carefully, weapon raised. He turned the corner, and froze. The rest of the team heard his breath catch. "Sir," he said, voice trembling. It's them." The commander stepped forward and looked. Standing in the corridor were several Valorans, their forms pale and translucent, flickering like light reflected through water. Their eyes were hollow, their faces calm. One of them reached forward, lips moving, though no sound came out. The soldier stumbled back. "They're dead," he whispered. "They can't be here." The commander aimed his weapon but didn't fire. "It's not them," he said quietly. "It's a projection. It's trying to breach the ship through the neural field." The ghosts flickered and vanished, leaving behind only the cold silence of the corridor. The crew stared, shaken. "It's learning faster," the commander muttered. "It's adapting to our technology." He returned to the bridge. "We can't run anymore," he said to his officers. "If we jump, it follows. If we hide, it listens. We need to end this." "How?" one of the soldiers asked. "You can't shoot something that isn't real." The commander looked at the holographic map, then pointed to a distant mark on the edge of the galaxy. "The graveyard system," he said. "It's where the old Earth fleets went dark centuries ago. No stars, no light, no sound. If we bring it there, maybe we can bury it forever." The crew hesitated, but none objected. They knew there were no other choices left. The Argus turned slowly, aligning its course. "Prepare for jump," the commander said. "And pray it doesn't follow us through." The stars stretched into lines as the ship tore through hyperspace. For a brief moment, everything was still again. Then, deep in the ship, somewhere between the bulkheads, something whispered. "We're already here." The lights flickered. The AI's voice crackled. "Warning. Internal temperature rising. Reactor instability detected." The commander rushed to the control console. "Lock it down." "Unable to comply," the AI said. "Core systems compromised. Unknown interference pattern." The air began to shimmer with faint black smoke, curling along the ceiling like fog. "Containment teams," the commander shouted. "SEAL engineering." Soldiers ran toward the reactor deck. When they arrived, they stopped in horror. The core was glowing with unnatural light, and in the reflection of the energy field, they saw shapes, faces, moving within the plasma, whispering, pressing against the glass. "It's inside the ship," one of them said weakly. "It's using the reactor as a gate." The commander's voice came through the comms. "Fall back. Seal it off." The soldiers obeyed, slamming the bulkhead doors shut. The commander turned to his AI. "Can we eject the core?" "Negative," she replied. "Manual override required from the reactor deck." The commander paused, then began walking toward the elevator. "Sir," his second-in-command shouted. "You can't go down there. It's suicide." "If we don't," the commander said, "it spreads. And then no one escapes." He stepped into the elevator, gripping his rifle tightly. As the doors closed, he whispered, "No more running." The reactor chamber was filled with swirling light and black mist. The voices of the void echoed from every surface. "You can't destroy what you called." The commander stepped forward, his boots echoing on the metal floor. "You're not real," he said quietly. "You're just an echo." The shadows shifted, forming vague human shapes. "We are what remains. You answered the call. Now you are the call." He ignored the words and reached the control terminal. His hands flew across the keys, overriding the safety locks. The core began to destabilize, its glow growing brighter. The ship shook violently. "Core ejection in 60 seconds, the AI announced. The voices screamed louder. "You will burn with us." The commander looked up at the reactor, his face calm. "If that's what it takes." He pressed the final command. The reactor disengaged, launching out of the ship's hull into the void. For a moment, everything went silent. Then a blinding explosion filled the darkness, lighting up the empty galaxy. The shockwave threw the Argus off course, systems failing one by one. The crew tried to stabilize the ship, but many were thrown unconscious. When the light faded, the stars returned, but the darkness was gone. The void had vanished, or perhaps it had been scattered, broken apart by its own hunger. The commander's voice crackled through the intercom. "Status. We're alive," someone replied weakly. "But we've lost navigation. We don't know where we are."